if you listen to Republicans, what I'm about to say comes across as odd and not true, but it's absolutely true. Capitalism and democracy are fundamentally at odds with one another. The anger at the political class, meaning all of this anger and resentment at the establishment, politicians, that has gone about their way over the last 20, 30, 40 years, particularly the Democratic Party, but adding the Republican Party in for like 100 years, is part of the belief that the public interest is not served. That ultimately that these guys get up there and based on the money that's shoved into their G-string, goes out there and parrots certain things. Taking away the Republican Party for the moment, adding in the Democratic Party, that this parroting of language as if it's I'm somehow on your side, while simultaneously going to Washington and doing the interests of the people who are paying them. That creates a certain amount of resentment in the population itself. You're not representing my interests. You're representing the interests of the people who are paying you. There is a vast difference in those things. The public has responded to this by looking for a recourse. Now, the recourse may not necessarily come out in ways that fully make sense, but if you're going to be honest, in what recourse would they have? They chose Obama, the change candidate, in 2008. And in 2016, they threw themselves in the hands of a change candidate. Except this guy has 8 babies and ripped kids from their mamas. You can say the same thing about Brexit, a political class that is completely distinct from the people who they are supposed to represent, an alienation within the population itself. You can say the same thing about Bolsonaro. In fact, there are plenty of elections that are taking place across Europe. That is, you could say, Trumpism, as some people call it. The anger is palpable, and the anger is real. And those people are not necessarily wrong to be angry because those people are right. Those political class, that political class, the governing class, as George Bush was said, in the way that he would rub elbows with Bill Clinton. They're of a particular class, regardless of the language in which they use. And they obsequious, full stop, go into the interests of that class. I believe in democracy. And not just I believe in democracy. I believe in the scientific method that help us understand our world. And furthermore, I believe in humanity. Expansive humanism, if you want to call it that. Enter Colorado. There are 2 ballot measures that are headlong this unease of capitalism and democracy. And they're going head to head in Colorado today. First, let's go with Proposition 112. Proposition 112 has to do with, and I'll read the proposition just so we'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Establish a sensible 2,500-foot buffer zone between new oil and gas development and occupied buildings like homes and schools, as well as water sources, playgrounds, and other vulnerable areas. Essentially, we're trying to push back where oil and gas can produce. And if there is a habitable space, meaning kids, buildings, work sites, playgrounds, water sources, then you need to be 2,500 feet away. Why are they doing this? They're not doing this in a bubble or in a vacuum. They're doing this because there's a large body of research, hundreds of studies, 80% of which show that there are adverse consequences and adverse effects to the people living in those areas. And with the scientific method, objective reality, hey, if you believe in humanity, we want to push that back. It's a democratic process that says if our kids are getting sick, if we are getting sick, we are the people breathing that air. But corporations and the capitalistic system comes in and says, yes, but my profits. And they scream this. And they have millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars putting into the process to tell people something that's not true. That, hey, it's not a big deal that we're putting these oil things. I understand your kids are getting sick. I understand you're getting sick. But my profits. I need to make my profits. They're not breathing that air. We are. Their kids are not getting sick. Ours are. What do you want to do? Do you believe in capitalism? Do you believe in democracy? Do you believe in this idea of humanism? Do you believe that it is cities, states, it's their right in a democratic process to choose, to regulate, and to work in the best interest of you? And if you believe that, vote yes on Proposition 112. That's no bullshit. That's what that is. In fact, if I am, just to be very clear on this, there exists a vast catalog of scientific evidence suggesting that the proximity to oil and gas extraction poses serious health and environmental risks. In a 2016 analysis published in scientific journal PLOS One, researchers evaluated 685 peer-reviewed studies on the effects of fracking and found that 84% of them contain findings that indicate public health hazards, elevated risks, or adverse health outcomes. 69% of water quality studies and 87% of air quality studies found evidence of fracking-related pollutants and contaminants. Now, oil and gas will try to make this argument, hey, the environment is safer. War is peace. War is peace. It's propaganda. And they're dumping millions into trying to get people and to confuse people and make them think that unreality is reality. Vote yes. This is I love Proposition 112 because what it boils down to is that the political leaders weren't looking out for the interests of the public. They understood that the political leaders were bought and that anything that was going to take place was going to have to take place for them. There was nobody coming to their rescue. It was just them. And in a democratic process, they put in Proposition 112. Second part to this. So the oil and gas industry, big oil, big gas, looked at this and they said, oh my God, we don't want to do this. Our profits are at stake. We want to squeeze every ounce of money that we can squeeze out of these areas. Fuck those kids getting sick. Fuck your adverse health consequences. We don't breathe the air. We don't drink that water. We don't even live in that space. We don't walk your same sidewalks. That's your problem, not ours. And we're going to export the risk to you. In dealing with Proposition 112, they came up with the nuclear option. Amendment 74. Amendment 74 will make Proposition 112 moot. It will do so by trying to bankrupt the state. Essentially, any regulation that takes place. In fact, let me read it just so you can see it for yourself. It's a small crafted reading, and it's kind of like the voter rights legislation, or voter ID registration legislation. It sounds innocuous, and it sounds like it makes sense. But understand, if they wrote something in a way that didn't make sense, nobody would get it. It's legally crafted that way. Millions of dollars were paid to lawyers in fancy suits that eat expensive meals, that is part of a different class, in order to convince and trick you into voting for something that is not in your or the 99% interest. Require that state or local government to compensate a property owner if a law or regulation reduces the fair market value of his or her property. Well, who owns property? How many of you own property? Who owns property? This is like, we're going to cut taxes. Who has cash? Do you have cash? The overwhelming majority of Americans don't even have $400 in the bank. That legislation, regardless of how it sounds, regardless of the way the politician comes out and tries to explain it, it boils down to a different class. It is not for you, it is for them. Oftentimes, the stuff that Republicans and even Democrats talk about is not for you, it's for people of their class. They cut it in a particular language in order to convince you of things that is often against your self-interest. This is one of those things. What it would do, what it means is, if Colorado tries to regulate oil and gas, then it could wrap Colorado in all sorts of lawsuits. It can bankrupt the state. So it makes Proposition 112 kind of moot. Because yes, you may be able to push it back 2,500 feet, but we can now sue the state of Colorado for ensuring the water quality, the air quality, the quality of the environment. Something that the city and the state are commissioned to do. Meaning, in the pursuit of representing the interests of the constituency of Colorado, the capitalist class comes up with a nuclear weapon to essentially entangle one lawsuit after the next in order to bankrupt the state. This is what they've attempted to do. Let's go into the source. I'm putting the links below so you can read for yourself. Vote no on this. That's my point. Just to be clear. Proposition 74 this has been tried before in Oregon, by the way, and it was so bad because it allowed companies to sue the state that they repealed it within 3 years. This is a nuclear bomb. Colorado, they were concerned that they was going to cut the profits of energy companies. But understand they're doing this because they're trying to look out for the health and the well-being of the society itself, of the humanity. Amendment 74 protects all private property owners, including those who grow and raise our food. That's their propaganda about it. For its part, the measure sponsor originally admitted that the amendment is indeed meant to protect drillers' access to oil and gas reserves. That's true. That's exactly what it wants to do. And it wants to create a disincentive the state to look out for the well-being of its people. Right here. Which expanded property power to claim just compensation from the government. The initiative, curt 11 words, at first glance appear to be a simple and good government measure that makes sense for all of us. Denver Post editor turned fossil fuel industry spokesman Dan Haley recently insisted. We have 5 oil and gas companies that want to amend the Constitution. And mind you, this is an amendment to the Constitution itself. They're trying to change the Constitution to do this. Amend our Constitution, our controlling documents as foot a dark-haired... okay, I don't need all that. They put a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars. Amendment 74 does not appear to be part of a power grab by Texas oil barons. Instead, it taps into the fever dreams of a Gestapo government. I'm trying to... It will radically alter the law to give oil and gas companies more power to sue the state and local governments for property losses if the government restricts or regulates fossil fuel exploration for any reason. Health, safety, climate change, anything. My kid is getting sick. Fuck you, pay me. I can't breathe the air. Fuck you, pay me. But our water is polluted. Fuck you, pay me. That's what this is. Colorado's amendment is a radical model that could block all future state efforts to reduce fossil fuel extractions, carbon pollution, vehicle emissions, and climate change. And by the way, this is not just for oil and gas companies. This could open a door for all companies to do this if it adversely affects a company's profits. I don't want this video to go too long. I want it to be short, sweet, to the point. It could mean anything from chemical industry lawsuits demanding payment for losses from clean water laws to factory farms claiming damages for anti-pollution statutes to strip clubs and pot shops seeking remuneration for zoning regulation that restrict the location. Legal experts have even warned oil and gas companies that Amendment 74 could backfire on fossil fuel industry itself. They say it could spur homeowners to file lawsuits claiming nearby fracking sites reduces their property value. And those suits could prompt regulators to simply freeze all new permits for energy redevelopments. This is the nuclear option, based on residents trying to ensure the health and well-being of their environment, their kids, and themselves. Colorado's 74 push for the fossil fuel industry seems to be one of the most dangerous propositions in the country, tweeted Bernie Sanders after visiting Colorado on a campaign swing. It could open the floodgates for oil and gas and other corporate interests to bankrupt the state. The extremely dangerous amendment must be defeated. Amendment 74 is a nuclear weapon that can automatically detonate the bankruptcy of the state if any public agency tries to even modestly restrict fossil fuel production. Do you believe in democracy, or do you believe in the capitalistic system to essentially eat the state alive in order to squeeze out every bit of profit that it can, despite and over and beyond the interests of the people who actually live and breathe the air and drink the water and exist in that particular environmental space? I believe in democracy. I believe in a scientific method to explain my world that explains that this stuff is hazardous to our well-being. And I believe in humanity. Vote no on Amendment 74. Vote yes on Proposition 112 in Colorado. 60 minutes. That's not too bad. I'm putting the links at the bottom. All right, guys. Thanks all. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. I know it's a lot of shows today, but this is an election day. To me, this is a holiday. And I kind of want to get these shows in so people will have some insight on what's taking place. Thanks all.